And we're here today with Anthony Masiello. Thank you, Anthony, for taking the time to interview with me today.
Sure thing, Gene. Thanks a lot for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, great. Well, you've had an amazing weight loss journey. Wow. Share it. I mean, share your details because I know you had some health issues along the way. So, and you were on a lot of meds. So,
Yeah.
share that with
Yeah.
us.
Sure. Okay. So I want to start going way back
Okay.
to my childhood because I don't really know how to say it, but other than basically I grew up as being like a fat kid. I was overweight for most of my life, and it ended up being sort of how I identified myself.
Well,
And
was your family that way?
my family were all healthy weight. I have a brother who's 13 months younger than I am, and he always was growing up, and now he continues to be a healthy weight. I felt a little bit different, so it happened to me over the summer between the 4th and 5th grade. I came back to school after being out for the summer. And when I started back to the 5th grade, my friends noticed, and they actually asked me. They said, "Anthony, how'd you gain so much weight over the summer? Or what happened to you over the summer?"
I mean, was that the summer of I discovered soda or candy or?
I really don't know what it was, but something I don't know. I've looked back and tried to think about it. I can't really remember. I don't. They all blur together all those summers years ago.
In a land far away. Yeah.
But something happened, and even worse than just gaining the weight, like it stuck with me. It stuck with me for a long time after that, and it was tough going to school in the early '80s. Most people were of normal, healthy weight,
right.
And I was like one of two kids who were overweight in my grade.
And oh my God, just that kids are so cruel at that age,
Yeah. Yeah, and I had a lot of friends, and I would describe I grew up with a happy childhood. So it wasn't like it was terrible, but there were little things that I would notice, and I really tried. I did try to lose weight several times, and I would drop a few pounds. I would feel pretty good, and then eventually it would come back.
It comes back,
and that kind of back and forth, or that kind of yo-yo, continued until I guess I hit my bottom, which was much later in life. By the time I was 33 years old, I was weighing 360 pounds.
Oh my goodness! How tall are you?
I'm 6'4", so I'm tall. But basically, I had two things working against me. I'm taller than a normal or average sized person, and I was much heavier. So that made it hard for me to fit into places. Simple things like armchairs were almost impossible for me to sit in comfortably. It got to the point where it was having an impact on my life, and I needed to do something about it.
Well, what was your aha moment? What was that moment, that pivotal moment that I got to do something about it?
Yeah. So as I get to that, so I want to make sure that I explain my total current
state.
So no, that's okay. So 6'4", we got my height, my weight 360 pounds, 54-inch waist.
Wow.
I was on medication for high blood pressure. My doctor was really trying to get that under control for me. I had just been diagnosed with sleep apnea, so I was having trouble sleeping, and I would get frequent migraine headaches, like the kind that would shut down my day, where I really just had to go and be in a dark room and not be able to function. And combining all those things together, it was pretty tough. So at this point in time, my wife and I had also just bought a house, and we were starting a family. We had one son, and she was pregnant with my second son. And so getting to my aha moment, with having two children now, I applied for a life insurance policy because I wanted to make sure that I could provide for my family even if something happened for me and take care of these people. I remember coming home from work one day, and the letter was there from the insurance company after I did the application. And these application processes are pretty in depth. They send someone to the house to do an in-home physical. They
Right.
weigh me. They check all my medical history and records and all of that stuff. And when I opened the letter, it just said that I was denied. And
Oh,
yeah, and that was a huge wake up for me. That was a big blow because
yeah.
I know that these insurance companies, they take all this information that they collect, not just from me, from everyone that they deal with. And they have these huge
Right.
computers, and they plug in all these numbers, and these computers spit out an answer and basically telling them whether this person is worth insuring or not. And not so much knowing the person, because doctors have been telling me to lose weight my entire life,
Right.
but knowing that this system that is designed to basically predict life expectancy
Right.
said that I wasn't going to make it to 20 years. Like I took that as almost a
Oh.
death sentence.
Oh.
And then considering the stage of life that I'm at, relatively young, but
Right.
more importantly, just starting a family. I just brought two two beautiful creatures. I brought one beautiful son into the world, and we're expecting our second. And just the thought of not being, that this company didn't expect me to be there for the 20th birthdays was
Wow.
really
That
hard.
really hit home. My gosh.
Yeah. So that was really tough. And then what that did for me is that got me really thinking and reflecting on all of life's moments. What kind of things were hard for me? What was this life that I created for myself? I love to travel, and I remember walking down the aisle looking for a seat on an airplane,
Mm-hmm.
and I would be there, and I would be so nervous. I would start sweating as I'm walking down the aisle, because I know that the people in the seats, I can just imagine that they're watching. They're saying, "Oh no, don't sit next to me. Don't sit next to me." Anyone with an empty seat had to be
Right.
dreading it. The truth is, I was dreading it as well. I didn't want to be overflowing onto other people,
Yeah.
but there was nothing I could do. And it was even worse if I got a center seat,
Oh my
because
gosh.
that would mean I would be in between two people, and I would ride on the airplane, and I would cross my arms and try to shrink my shoulders and try to
But
hold myself
you
in.
can't fit that into that little space.
It's true. So I would be overflowing onto the seats, and since I was nervous, I would be, sweating. I would basically be a mess. And then, even once I'm sitting there, once I did get into the seat, then I would have to wait. They don't do it as much anymore, because now they have the TV screens. But it used to be that the flight attendant would hold up and show you how to work the seatbelt.
Right.
They had this
like nobody
short little,
knows how to use a buckle, right? In the 20th
exactly,
century.
but they would hold
Right.
it up above, and they would show everyone on the plane. And then what I would have to do is I would have to, as kind of nonchalant as possible, I would call over the flight attendant, and I would ask if I could have that buckle to extend my seatbelt, because furthering the fact that I didn't fit in the seatbelt wouldn't even go around me.
Oh.
So I would have to extend it so that I had two buckles on my lap. And that's the only way that I could even buckle up on the plane. And if the people on either side of me didn't think they kind of lost they had bad luck at that point, then it was confirmed for them when I had to ask for that. I mean, like, I really didn't fit. And so there were things like that I certainly wasn't proud of. Those are not the kind of moments that really made me think very much of myself. And those things were sad. So I started looking at those moments. And another one that really stands out for me is when the church fair came to town.
Oh yeah.
So I want to set this up, because it was a happy time for us. My wife and I, we had our son. He was 18 months old. And at that time, he's kind of starting to communicate and smiling and getting, kind of knows what's going on around him. And I mean, it's an amazing time to be a parent. And I was really into it. I mean, I'm really into being a dad. I love that. So we're at the fair, and we're walking around, and I'm holding my son here, and his head is like, he's looking around here at my shoulder height, and I'm just holding him, and we're walking around, and we come around one of the concessions, and he sees it. And like, he points because he sees a train ride.
Right.
And he plays with Thomas the Train at home. He has the little wooden tracks with the battery powered train, and he was watching the show on TV, and he liked Thomas the Train, and he started pointing at it because he knew he wanted to ride on that train. And I just thought that was cool because, you know, my son wants to do something, you know, when they're babies and they're pretty much just eating and breathing and going to the bathroom.
A few other things, but
we were getting out of that now, and this kid knows what he wants to do, and as a parent, that's just amazing. So we start right away. My wife and I are very happy to walk over towards the train.
Oh, I know what's coming.
When we get close, I kind of hooked my arms under my son to pull him off my chest. And when I did that, he was like pulling my shirt. He didn't want to let go. And to me, that meant that he wanted me to take him on the train.
Yeah.
But the truth is, there is no way I was going to fit on this kiddie train. I mean, if I can't fit on an adult-sized airplane seat, how am I going to fit on a ride that's made for kids? There's no way. So I give him to my then pregnant wife, who's pregnant with our second son, and we go up, and they give the
cry?
Well, I didn't start to cry at this point.
No,
you know,
your son?
Oh, no. You know, honestly, by the time they gave the tickets to the attendant and they started walking by the train, I think he only saw the train. Yeah. You know, I don't know if he knew that I even existed anymore at that point. But I was paying attention, you know, and they gave the tickets to the attendant. They started going, they're getting on the train, and he's just excited. He's going to ride on a train for the first time in his life. And then the attendant said to me, he said, "Excuse me, sir, you have to stand over on the side to watch."
Oh.
And he pointed me around, and there I am. I'm standing outside, literally a metal gate, watching as
from the sidelines.
From the sidelines, like an observer, like like someone who's watching my life go around in circle on this train, because
right,
I couldn't participate. And the two things that popped into my head, you know, is this really the kind of father that I am?
Yeah.
Is this really the kind of father that I'm going to be?
From the sidelines, coaching from the side. Yeah.
As an outsider, is this the kind of husband that I am to my wife?
Right.
You know, my life partner. What else is she going to have to do that I won't be able to do? That I'm just going to have to sit out on? And that was huge. I mean, that hit me at a really deep, really emotional level. And that's when, you know, I really knew that when I started thinking back on these things, like they all added up. I knew I had to change. I had to do something differently.
So what did you do?
Yeah. So I didn't know what to do. I mentioned earlier that I had lost weight tons of times, you know, maybe 10 or 20 times, and I've lost it pretty well. And it came back, and that's not what I wanted to do this time. I really wanted to find something that would stick. So I didn't know what to do, but it was getting towards the end of the year after I received that letter from the insurance company in October or so. And so I said, okay, I'm going to set a New Year's resolution. And my goals were to lose 50 pounds over the next 12 months, over the next year. That would have been the year of 2006. And the only thing I knew to do to start was I was going to give up sweets.
Right.
I was not going to eat any more desserts, ice cream, sugar, cake, candy, you know, none of that stuff.
Right.
And I was going to give up soda.
Okay.
So I wasn't going to drink any soda. I wasn't going to eat any sweets. And I was going to really step up what I knew how to do, which was try to control my portions and try to choose healthier options when I ate.
Well, how did that work?
And so as far as my commitment, I was there.
Okay.
You know, I didn't, and I still to this day, 12 years later, have still not had a sip of soda or a bite of sweets.
Is sugar like one of your trigger foods?
I don't really know. I don't know if I was able to stick with it because that was easy for me. It didn't actually have much of an impact for me because it wasn't the worst thing that I was doing. But anyway, after 3 months, I literally had nothing to show for it. I had not lost, but by March, I had not lost a single pound. And those feelings of, you know, I felt deflated again.
Right.
All those feelings of defeat, they just came right back. And it's very easy at this point when things like this happen. Like, do I just justify it? Do I just say, well, I guess I'm just a big guy, or I guess that's
Right.
just the way I am? I had that choice, but I didn't go there, and I'm so happy that I didn't. I just used it, say, okay, well, what I'm doing now is not working, but I was still incredibly motivated. I knew I
Okay.
had to find something that would
Right.
work. So I started searching the internet.
Right.
I was already vegetarian earlier in the 90s. I gave up meat.
Right.
Actually, I gave up meat and alcohol in the same day. I said, I'm not going to drink any more alcohol. I'm not going to eat any more meat. And that was one of my longer time successes. And that probably lasted about a year or so. I got down under 300 pounds, and I stayed there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly over time, I figured out, I guess, how to be an unhealthy vegetarian, because
Right.
here I am, a 360-pound vegetarian with a 54-inch waist. But I wasn't ready to give all of that up. I still felt like vegetables were the important food to be
Right.
eating for
Yeah.
health and for weight loss, even though I clearly did not have it figured out. But all the popular stuff out at the time was Atkins and these high
Ooh.
proteins and
Yeah.
these meat diets. So I wasn't ready to go there. I wasn't ready to go that far. So I just
Kudos to you
continued.
for not switching.
I lucked out. Yeah, exactly. And then I was searching, and on Amazon, it popped up Dr. Joel Fuhrman's book, Eat to Live.
Oh, good one. Good one.
Yeah, yeah. And so I read the reviews of the book, and I read the little synopsis, and it basically talked about eating a plant-based whole foods diet.
So it resonated with you.
Well, what mostly resonated with me is that people explained that they actually got healthy eating this way, and that, oh yeah, by the way, they also lost a ton of weight.
Yeah, a
And
side
it stayed
effect.
off.
Yeah.
It stayed off. And I was like, well, that sounds good, because I'm not just looking to shed pounds on the outside. I have this sleep apnea, I have this high blood pressure, I have all these things
Right.
these migraine headaches. I have all these things that I'm dealing with, that in order for me to get myself to the point where I need to get this life insurance policy, it had to be more about just shedding a few pounds. Like, it was about total health. And that's what really clicked for me. This was about getting healthy. So I bought the book, it arrived, and I started changing right away. As I was reading the chapters, I started doing this. And my biggest thing I started doing was I started adding. So, meaning I started eating tons of vegetables. I started eating a lot of fresh fruit, more than I ever had before, and plenty of beans. And then he also talks about nuts and seeds, and I would have some of those, but that's not what I was concentrating on in the beginning. And let me tell you, it worked. By the time my son was born, just 2 months after purchasing Eat to Live, I had lost almost 35 pounds. And
Awesome.
yeah, and that was the motivation I needed. That's all I needed to keep myself going. I mean, that was the momentum. Right? Like, once it started, it was so easy to just stick with it. And what I did was I continued for the rest of that year. I just continued to eat more and more and more vegetables, fruits, beans, some nuts and seeds, and really boosting up that stuff and letting that continue to crowd out anything else that I was eating. And by the end of the year, by the time the December came around, I'd lost a total of 90 pounds. So
wow.
I completely blew away my goal of losing 50 pounds for the year. Yeah.
Yeah, so, that's awesome. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thanks. Yeah. So I was feeling good, and I had no reason to try to change anything else. The only thing I wanted to do is just continue. And it's exactly what I did. I was losing. So after that initial big push, I was losing about 8 pounds a month.
Right.
And I continued for the rest of that year, several months, 8 pounds, 8 pounds, 8 pounds. Then, it was December time again. And now I had energy, being down 90 pounds from 360 pounds. I was, at that point, I was already lighter than I ever was in college or after high school. I remember graduating high school at about 290 pounds.
Right.
I was big, and now I was, if I want to do the math quickly in my head, I was probably 270 at this point, and I was feeling good. So I decided I was going to start exercising. So I didn't grow up playing any sports. I was an active person. I would do things like riding bicycles and skateboarding and things like that. Even as a big kid, those are the things that I wanted to do, kind of individual things, but not really like exercising, so to speak, or team sports where I did any kind of training or practice, stuff like that. So, but my wife was always a runner, and I would follow her to these marathons, and I would try to see her at 3 or 4 different locations on the course, and
watching from the side.
Yeah, they see a theme there. um, so, and I decided it was time for me to stop watching, and I was going to start doing it. So I set another New Year's resolution. No goals really on this one, but I said I just wanted to become a runner. That was my goal for 2000.
Kudos to you, because this is not a running body. I mean, wow, impressive.
Well, that's what I learned, Gene. We all have one hiding inside us. It's just if we want to bring it out or not, right?
Exactly. Well, that's what this is it's a change. It's a change that what's inside of you is coming out, and you start to see this as you start to shed your weight. You see what you can become.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be things that people want to become from the beginning either. I didn't decide when I started losing weight that I was going to start exercising. I was incredibly busy with a toddler and an infant at home, a newborn at home.
Yeah, that'll keep you busy.
And a day job and a house to take care of and all these things. I mean, I wasn't looking for things to do, and I didn't set out to become a runner. But by the time I lost that much weight, and also how good my body was working, at that point I was also off all my medications. My blood pressure went from being in the danger zone on medication to being a very healthy blood pressure even without medication. And
how awesome is that?
It was amazing. And I stopped having migraine headaches, and I was sleeping better. And all these things are working, and it was fascinating to me at the time, but now I know that this is normal. This is what anyone can do, switching to a plant-based diet. But I wanted to exercise at this point. It wasn't something that I felt like I had to do. I'm like, I had this energy, and I was going to do something with it. So I wanted to become a runner.
I mean, the energy level, once you switch to this diet, oh my God, it's amazing. I mean, I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I go pretty much almost till 11 or 12 o'clock every night, going full strength.
And you can't explain it to people, and I wouldn't have believed it if somebody tried to explain it to me. But it is something that once you experience it, you feel it, and it's exactly like what you said. So we had a treadmill in the basement. I was going to figure out how to become a runner. So I just started walking. I said, okay, I'm going to go on the treadmill for a half hour. And I would start walking, and then I would bump up the speed a little bit, and then I would start running. And then when I would get exhausted, probably 30 seconds later, I would just bring it down to a walk. And then when I felt good again, I could breathe again, I would bump it up, and I would continue running. So I did that from the beginning of the year and until I could run like a quarter of a mile.
Okay.
And then I could run a half mile, and then I could run a mile, and then I could run, I would run a mile, then I would take a very short walk break, then I could run another mile, and then I would continue doing this.
Wow.
And then just by March of that year, I signed up for my first 5K race.
No way.
And so I was going to be the one out there doing it. I realized. So
wait. Did your wife didn't join that one?
No, she didn't. She was
sitting
supporting
on the side.
Yeah, exactly. Her and the kids were sitting on the side, and I was doing my own thing. So I don't know if that really helped my cause or hurt my cause, but for me, it was amazing. You go to these running races, and everyone has so much energy, and they're like buzzing around. They're going over here, and they're picking up this packet, and they're going over here, and they're dropping this off here, and then they're ready to go to the starting line, or maybe they're going to use the bathroom. But it's like bees just swarming around, like everyone's doing all this stuff, and then everyone lines up, and then they say go, and then you take off. And that was the first time that I had ran 3 miles outside. And it was an amazing experience. The whole thing was just great. It was cool being out there, being the one participating. It was cool being around these other people. It was the first time that I had put a number on my chest.
Right.
Maybe since the 3rd or 4th grade, when I played rec basketball for 1 season.
Right.
That was cool, and I felt good doing it. So I ran that, and by that time I knew I was hooked on living. My life was now going to include, exercising regularly, living a very active life, and eating a plant-based diet, because this was clearly working for me. I had felt better than ever. So I continued through the rest of that year. I continued to eat more and more fruits and vegetables than I ever thought possible. And I continue running a little bit further and longer. I just continue
Right.
pushing that out every single day. And then in September of 2007, my weight loss stopped just as suddenly as it began. So I continued losing 8 pounds a month, even though I was exercising. The rate didn't change for what ended up being a total of about 20 months. In September, I stepped on the scale and it weighed 197 pounds. The end of August, I stepped on the scale and I weighed 197 pounds. So and that just stayed. October, whatever. My weight loss just really, it dropped and then it just flattened out. And at that point, but at that point, I lost a total of 160 pounds.
Wow.
I got off all my medication. I was, like I said, I was sleeping well. I had literally become a runner. In that 20 months that it took me to lose weight, I really got an entirely new life.
Oh.
Like everything about it was different. The way I felt, the way I thought, the way I, the things I did were active. I still had all, it changes everything. Yeah. And I still had all my same friends and my family. I was just able to appreciate everything that much more. And, it was amazing. It was fantastic. So
what do you eat in a given day now?
So, and the last point I just want to make, and I was able to get my life insurance policy. So 2 years later, and not only that, I got it in like the Premier Plus category or something, which means I didn't even have to pay very much for it.
Wow.
So again,
that's
all those
a non-scale victory if I ever heard one.
Exactly. All those things that ran through my mind when this insurance company said that I wasn't worth insuring for 20 years, all of those now were completely erased. And it was all erased because of things that I did for myself. No one else could have done that for me.
Yes. It has to come from within.
Yeah. So it was just amazing. And now my life continues to just be fantastic. Everything that I used to do before, like I mentioned, skateboarding, snowboarding, bicycles, riding motorcycles, like all those things that were difficult before, but I still did them. Now they're like sheer pleasure for me. Like effortless. I get so much more enjoy it. Yeah, exactly. And the things that I can do now with my family are amazing as my kids are older. So it's been a while now for me. My kids are now 11 and 13 years old. So
now, does your family eat plant-based?
Yes. So they didn't come on. I mean, I took care of myself in the beginning, and I'm a big believer in that. You have to take care of yourself before you can take care of anyone else. So I really did my own thing. They were very supportive. And the truth is I needed that support. I don't think I would have been able to do it if my wife was trying to derail me along the way, but I didn't make it her thing. Even when it started working well for me, it was my thing. So she switched over a little more slowly than I did, but it is also contagious. And I'm sure you know this from the communities and how you're involved, that people don't know people just start to want to do what you're doing because they don't understand how you could feel so good or how you can get the kind of results that you're looking for, or how you can really transform your body like this and your whole life like this. And just be happy and proud and on all these things that come along with it, the confidence that comes with it, being able to take charge of your own life and stuff, and somehow that becomes contagious. So she did switch over. I will say I was happy that she started to switch over by the time that my kids started eating solid food. So we're pretty much, maybe aside from a few months, we're pretty much able to raise our 2 children on a purely plant-based diet.
Oh, how awesome for them.
Yeah,
how
exactly.
Awesome for them.
Yeah. And it's a big thing for me. I don't want them to grow up the way that I did. And when I say that, I mean, I did have a happy childhood. I mentioned that, but there were things that were challenging for me. And if I can do anything to help them so they don't have to have those kinds of things to think about and worry about, that kind of burden, then that's kind of my job. So
you're being a dad.
So I'm really happy. I'll say that they're both very healthy. They're both very happy. And when we do go to the doctor once a year for checkups, they're very proud because the doctor said, "Oh, here's my healthy family. I only get to see you guys once a year." And
they don't get sick.
They don't get sick.
Right.
They don't get to take time off of school. They feel good all the time.
Yeah.
They're also very active. We run together as a family now.
Nice.
So to answer the question clearly, so my wife came on a couple of years after I started, and the kids have come on, and in general, we're all eating a purely plant-based diet. It's pretty great.
So walk me through what you eat during the day.
So on a typical day, so I'm on vacation now. That's why I say on a typical day.
Okay.
My normal day is I just have fruit for breakfast.
Okay.
Or if I'm really busy in the morning, sometimes now I will skip that, and I'll let my body go an extended period of time without eating. I don't
intermittent
snack.
fasting.
Exactly. So sometimes I'll push that off, but on a normal, typical day, especially if I do a longer run or one of these boot camp classes that I like to do at the gym, then after that I'll just have fruit, and that's my breakfast is fruit.
Okay.
Lunch is usually a huge salad. That's a salad that includes also things like steamed broccoli and cooked beets and plenty of beans on top. It's a very hearty. I put fruit and stuff on there. I usually am eating out in either a cafeteria or a grocery store or a restaurant where I stay away from the dressing.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm eating my big salad, or if I'm having a big salad at home, I can make a dressing that has no oil and no salt in it. But when I'm out, I stay away from them. How I get around that is by putting plenty of flavors on there. So I'll use raisins, I'll use some sliced almonds or some sunflower seeds or some pumpkin seeds, and I'll just make a really tasty a big salad. And then my dinner is usually also a salad. And then my typical standard is, I call it beans over greens.
Okay.
So whatever kind of greens we have around, and sometimes we have steamed kale that we'll steam a whole bunch. We'll steam a couple pots and we'll just keep that in the fridge so it's easy to have. Sometimes my greens will just be like chopped romaine lettuce. Mm-hmm. It can be frozen spinach. It can be frozen broccoli. Sometimes it's not actually beans. Sometimes it's tomatoes. Or down here now, I'm in North Carolina right now, and the peaches are going crazy. So sometimes it'll just be sliced peaches, but then I always cover that with beans. Okay. And the beans can be anything just like the greens. It can be black beans. It can be chickpeas. It can be lentils. It can be, whatever kind of beans we have around. Again, if we make a big pot, if we season them up, if we haven't done that, if we don't have anything prepared, it can be very simple as a can of no salt beans, and I'll mix in some low salt salsa, and I'll just cook that on the stove for a little while and just dump that on top of some greens. So beans and greens is really my go-to meal. Okay. And then we get a little bit creative sometimes. We make some dishes that everyone loves. We have a baked falafel recipe that my wife and I came up with. We have an eggplant rollatini that we can make, which is like a cashew, spinach, and mushroom filling.
Right.
That we stuff inside of eggplant. We roll that up, and we have some dishes. Those are more kind of special things. Those are more like
treats.
And they're not really treats for us because I enjoy it all the same, and it's not outside of how we should be eating. It's all normal stuff. It just takes more time to prepare.
Right.
So it's more like a special meal, like if we're having someone over, especially having someone over who doesn't already eat a plant-based diet, then we know what dishes that we have that everyone enjoys. So I can make the baked falafels for anyone, and everyone just enjoys those. We have one we call veggie balls, and it's almost like a meatball, but again, it's just something that everyone enjoys. The ingredients are pure; they're 100% on track. But it's more work than I can do after working all day and doing all my running around with the kids. So that's why I say we don't have them as often.
Well, do the kids have issues, like say at school? How do they deal with it?
So at school, they're fine. We're at a pretty small school. Everyone in the community knows us. So the kids bring their lunch. When they were younger, the teachers used to watch. And I would ask the kids, sometimes they would just bring like sliced avocado, beets, and broccoli. And that would be their lunch. And I said, does anyone ever ask you about their lunch? And I said, no. Well, and then my younger said, well, sometimes my teacher comes over and she says, I always like checking out your lunch, Henry, because you always have something that looks so good. So,
right? Our food looks amazing.
It does. So they get that that kind of, but no one's really saying that what they eat is weird or
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. I did make what's called the healthy chocolate cake
Mm-hmm.
for my son's 8th birthday because he really wanted to serve that to all of his friends. And
Okay.
this was a Dr. Furman's recipe, and I make it occasionally, like probably 4 times over the past 10
Right.
years because it's so much work. But it's shredded zucchini, it's shredded beets, it's shredded carrots, it's shredded
Right.
pineapple, it's applesauce, it's bananas, it's currants, it's walnuts. It's like, it really is all of this healthy stuff. It's so much work. So I made enough for all the kids, and I made enough for the parents also to have this cake. And we were at laser tag, and first of all, we had to get an exception to bring our own dessert because otherwise they just want to serve their dessert.
Right.
But
Right.
we said, okay, he doesn't eat oil, he doesn't eat dairy, he doesn't eat sugar, and he doesn't eat oil.
What do you
And if you
got?
can, if you can make something for us, that would be fantastic. Otherwise, we're happy to bring our own. And at that point, they're like, you better just bring your own. So, so we brought the cake, the laser tag, and as I'm slicing it, and it looks like a frosted chocolate cake. It has a
Uh-huh.
macadamia and date nut frosting. I mean, macadamia and date frosting with cocoa powder in there, so it looks like a chocolate frosting. And as I'm putting out these plates, my son is so proud, and he goes, "You guys are gonna love this. This has zucchini and beets and
Oops.
carrots and like, and there were probably 12 kids there, and 2 of the kids pushed it right away,
Yeah.
and they're like, "I'm not touching this. I don't even know what a beet is or whatever." And those 2 kids didn't eat it, and everyone else, every other kid, the other 10 kids or however
Right.
many there were, they ate it. They enjoyed it. They said it was delicious. Like I said, the parents, I brought plenty in case the parents wanted to try it.
Right.
And the truth is everyone liked it. So we have sometimes situations like that where, we bring something that's healthy and we share it with everyone and it works. And then there are other times when there are other people's parties and there will be serving cake and the kids will ask me, they'll say, "If I skip the dessert here, will you make me something when we get home?" And I say, "Sure, yeah, that's no problem." Or occasionally they'll say,
Wow.
"Yeah." So those are really proud
That
parenting
is,
moments.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then sometimes they'll just say, "I'm just going to have a little bit of the dessert." And at that point, I say, "Okay."
Right.
I'm not trying to create issues with them, and I
Right.
don't believe that this has to be something that alienates them, especially as kids, because what I want them to do is embrace this for the long term.
Right.
And
Right.
if I make it stressful, and if I'm trying to take this hardline approach, what I really want to do is help them to learn and pay
How to deal
attention to
with
how they feel,
situations.
how to deal with situations, and how do you feel when you eat healthy food, and how do you feel when you eat unhealthy food, and how does healthy food taste, and how does unhealthy food taste. So I will ask them questions, and I'll just say afterwards. I mean, I don't make a big deal. It's not like I interview them, but I'll say, "How was the cake?" And they'll say, "It was okay." And if they say something like that, then I just kind of drop the conversation. I'm like, okay, so they've registered in their mind that they had some and that it was okay. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if they got in the car and we're driving home or whatever, I pick them up and they say, "Oh my God, the cake was the most amazing thing, and it had ice cream and it had blah blah blah." And if they're really bumping it up into something outstanding in their mind, then I'm going to be concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, what I'm going to do is look for ways to kind of steer that conversation that they're having in their own minds and get them back on track to help them to realize that the healthier food can be just as tasty, and to help
Right.
them to realize that these things that may taste good aren't going to really support the life that they want or support the health that they want for themselves. So
Well, did they ever
it's
have like what I call Mcdougal moments? Like, because we're like clean now eating, but
yeah.
if you deviate and eat some of the foods not good, like animal products and things like that. Like I went off track and ate a bagel. First, I was just going to get a bagel toasted, okay?
Yeah.
But then the guy said, "Would you like? We have this new cream cheese, and it's got honey and walnuts and cinnamon and raisins. Would you like to try
Oh.
that?" And before I could say anything, I was like, "Yeah, I want that!" And he
Wow.
slathered it on like a half-inch thick. And I ate it
Yeah.
like I was a prisoner of war, just being released. And I ate it. And I wasn't even out of the parking lot when I could feel my stomach already.
Yeah.
the insides of me, it felt like somebody was sticking a knife through my stomach. And I got
Yeah.
home and I curled up on my bed in a fetal position and just started mooing, and
Yeah.
moo. And my husband comes over and he's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I hate cream cheese. And like, have I done that since? No. I mean,
Yeah.
because I remember the pain. It was 6 hours. So they had any moments like that where they just like feel
So
crappy?
not that bad, but I can tell definitely if they eat anything with sugar, because they do go on, they go on their energy roller coaster.
Right.
They'll be hyper for a while and then they crash. And when they crash, it crashes in the forms of not just tired or sleepy, but in this kind of anxious energy where their emotions are all over the place. Well, they'll get upset over things. And my younger son is more susceptible to it. And I'll say, "What did you eat today?" Or, if he comes
Right.
home from camp and he's just unsettled and he's like feeling anxious and being very moody, and then he'll say he had something. So I pay most attention to the conversations that they have in their own head. And if they say, "Oh, I had whatever, something with sugar," um,
Right.
or they were giving out whatever it was, candy, I had a starburst or something like that. I really want them to think about
And put the
the lesson that
connection.
you learned. Yeah,
Yeah.
make a
Make that
connection, make that
connection.
association so that they'll make it. But the truth is, it doesn't happen very often at all. So I'm really lucky about that. They haven't had those kind of moments. And I kind of say I have like this iron stomach, like, I think I could still eat anything and be okay. So my
Okay.
thing is, I'm not going to test it, right?
Mm.
So I'm staying 100% on track because I don't want to eat something and feel fine afterwards. I don't
Right.
want to I don't want to have that bagel with cream cheese and then feel fine afterwards. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's how I keep myself on. And the truth is, that stuff is like zero temptation to me now. Like,
Yeah.
I fill up my water bottle at this one water cooler at work, and it's by like a kitchenette area. And 3 days a week, there's cake or there's like donuts or there's something there. And being tall, I have to bend way over to fill my water bottle. And my face might be like, 6 inches away from this. And it's not tempting at all. It might as well be rocks and sticks to me, because that's not kind of stuff that I put into my body,
Well,
and I'm talking from experience
you're
of
ahead of the
12
game.
years. Yeah. Well, and it's been a long time. I literally had not had a taste of that in over 12 years now. So it's easy. And that's the one thing when I talk to people who are just switching out, I'm like, let it be hard. But the faster you get yourself over this hump, that's when it becomes easy. And the trickiest part is to be going back and forth.
Yes.
A
Yes.
friend of mine describes it like when you're at the beach and you want to go swimming in the ocean and the waves are breaking on the shore, right?
Right.
If you stay on the shore, it's easy peasy, no problem. If you go out in there and you go out past the breaking waves and you're out there to the calm sea, again, it's no problem. You can just stay out there and float and relax. But when you're going in and out, or if you're keeping yourself in that conflicting zone where the waves are breaking and breaking and breaking, it's constant effort.
It
And
is.
I believe that's where people fail. They stay in that area for too long. They don't even give themselves the chance, like, to get out there past that, to see how sweet it could be. And Dr. Lyle talks about it in The Pleasure Trap as being like this 4 to 6 week journey that so many people will never stick with long enough to make it through. And I don't know. I think
4 to 6 weeks. Are you kidding me? 4 to 6 years for me.
I was going to say, exactly. I think the time is different for everybody, and the time is different for everything. I made that decision to give up sweets and soda in one day, and I never went back. But there were other things that, like pizza, for example, I wasn't ready to give that up for probably a year or two. And I mean, my pizza changed. It went from, to pizza with no cheese, to pizza with loaded with vegetables on a whole wheat crust with a little bit of sauce. And then at some point you get to the point, it's like, okay, well, why bother?
Right.
And I still will if I'm out somewhere, and my pizza has changed now over time. So it's not the same pizza that I used to eat before, which would be cheese and, and even those, like penny pasta on top of pizza, like those things. Oh
my God.
Those things used to be delicious to me, but now my pizza has changed over time. So now if I do have pizza, it will be with a whole wheat crust. It'll have tons of vegetables on top of it, and some red sauce and no cheese. And maybe I won't even eat all the crust anyway. And it's always with a huge salad. That meal, I don't really consider too far off track. It's a little bit of white flour or a little bit of whole wheat flour, but aside from that, everything on there is solid. So the things that are important kind of come along with us.
I know, but I still have that addiction brain. Yeah. I do. I mean, I still see, like, in where I work, I'm a teacher, so they bring in, like, once a month they'll bring in treats for us. And so they'll bring all these, like, decadent desserts, muffins from the best bakeries around. Bagels and cream cheese. I don't touch the cream cheese. I'm good. I'm good there. But I see a muffin and go, I like muffins, and I make amazing muffins. But I say, I see a muffin and I go, oh, I like muffins. I not on maximum weight loss, but I eat muffins. And I see that, and it still registers in my head, and that's a tough day for me. That really is a tough day.
Yeah, and it's hard, and it all depends on what you want to do with it, and see, what I think happens is every time we have an experience, we either support or we either build up or we tear down what we're doing in our brain. I like to think of these moments as kind of adding threads to a rope.
Okay.
Right? Where you start with one thread, right? And every time you have an experience like you're describing with the muffin moment, right? Yeah. We want to call it that. So if you go there and you see those muffins and you don't want to have one and you don't eat the muffin, it's like adding a thread to your rope, right? You're making that in your brain, that neural association is becoming stronger. Oh, I can do that. I mean, think about the self-talk that comes after that. And think about the things that you'll think when you get home later. You're like, oh, I had an opportunity to have a muffin today and I skipped it and my day was fine. And now I feel proud of that, right?
Yeah.
And then
it's a non-scale victory.
Yeah. And then the time when you do have the muffin, you basically have broken one of those threads, right? And then what you're telling yourself later was, I had a muffin today. Oh, it wasn't such a big deal. It was fine, or whatever you tell yourself. But then, which one? What does it do? How does it set you up for your next experience or for your next muffin moment, right? So if you go 5 in a row, you might never have another muffin moment again in your life. If muffins are really important to you, maybe it takes 50 in a row. But there is a point where they're no longer anything to you. So, and I'm not saying you need to do this for your muffins, because I'm a big fan of helping people to do what they want to do. Right. So maybe that's not the example, but that I think, and I just mention it here because generically, I think it's a pretty good way to think about it. It's really helped me a lot.
Right. So that's a great analogy.
If I make it through a day super clean, I take some time to celebrate that to myself, not with like a party hat and a song, but in reinforcing my mind, hey, today was a good day. I had a chance to do this and that, but I stayed on track and now I feel great and blah, blah, blah.
A gold star moment.
Yeah. And continue those. And then I believe that's how people become rock solid. And then there's nothing to worry about. And the same thing works with skipping a run, right? Mm-hmm. I try not to skip a run. And if I don't, if I fit one in, because I did that because it makes me feel good, I remember all those things. Oh, I'm so glad I went for that run this morning. It would have been so easy to skip it. It wouldn't have affected anything. It wouldn't have changed my weight or my aerobic capacity or anything like that. But the fact that I did it, I'm proud of that. So those are the things that, that's just kind of how I think about it.
Awesome. Well, you've got a local group now that you do as a meetup and.
Yeah. So we have a couple things going on. So the one that I would really like to mention is we have the Central Jersey Nutritarians group. This is a meetup. It's a potluck. We meet once a month on Dr. Ron Weiss's Ethos Health Farm in Long Valley, New Jersey. And Dr. Weiss has an amazing story himself where he actually sold his medical practice, and he bought a 342-acre farm. And he put a medical practice on the farm so he can practice food as medicine. And he's been very generous. He has donated the space for us. So to meet there on his farm, and in the summer times, he has a farmer's market that's open and people want to buy vegetables. In the wintertime, there's no farmer's market, but we get to meet in this farmhouse that was built in like 1813. and it's just such a surreal environment to get together with people.
Wow. How
Yeah,
cool is that?
it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Anthony, so much for taking the time to interview with me today.
You're welcome.
Your journey has been inspiring.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Yeah, this is a lot of fun. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm really glad we got to talk today. This was great.